Most management models in most companies are working the old way. They're out of date, and they're working for an environment that doesn't exist anymore. People are different, markets are different, the task is different. If we go all the way back to Frederick Winslow Taylor in the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in 1914, this is the man who was referred to as the father of modern management theory. And basically his idea was that you have to separate the doers from the thinkers, right? You've got this small group of really smart people who are taking all the decisions in the organization, and then you've got an organization that basically doesn't need to think. They just need to shut up and do work efficiently, and you motivate them based on menial tasks and improving their, okay, you can do 10 per day, guess what, I'll give you a bonus if you can do 15 per day. And that type of motivation works when there's no cognitive engagement. When I don't need people to use their brain, I can get them to do manual tasks faster by throwing more money at them. Today that doesn't work, and we're going to break this down in a number of ways. So let's look at what's happened since Frederick Winslow Taylor made that kind of management theory choice, and that was really around kind of Industry 2.0. So we've gone from mass production and having electricity to now being electronic and IT systems and automating things in the 1970s that started, and today we're getting into robotics and artificial intelligence and so on. We really don't need unintelligent hands doing work anymore because we can have the work done by machines and computers. So what we need is an intelligent workforce. We don't need a dumb workforce, which is what Frederick Winslow Taylor was pushing. So if we think about this, another part is that markets have changed dramatically over that period of time. If we go back to 100 years ago, there was largely local markets with craft offerings. So things were tailored by the local butcher or the local blacksmith or the local builder or whatever, and there wasn't a lot of standardization. If we look at that period from the early 1900s up to about 1970, markets were fairly spacious. There were almost like monopolies in different industries that took over everything, and that created very little competition, which created very little stimulus to be better at what you were doing. So the only real driver was based on cost, not based on customer. If we look today, we're in a bit of a pickle here because we've got markets, because of globalization, that are becoming dramatically overpopulated by competition, and most management models in most companies are working the old way. They're out of date, and they're working for an environment that doesn't exist anymore. So the whole concept of I will distribute tasks and responsibilities through the organization, and then I will manage people to make sure those things are done efficiently. This doesn't work anymore. People are different, markets are different, the task is different. So if we look at this, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, this was the age of, let's say, craft manufacturing, where value creation was created by humans. They had to think and be good at their trade. If we look at from, let's say, the early 1900s to about 1970, 1980, the solution was more mechanical. Value creation came from mechanics. In the beginning, they were the mechanics of non-thinking hands of the people that we told to stop thinking and just do it faster. But over time, there was an optimization of tasks, and there was an automation of simple tasks, and then there was an automation of complex tasks. And now we have robotization and AI. And now, in this day of today, value creation is at the brains of the thinkers. So value creation is once again with the brain, not with the hands. And this is a dramatic change. And if we look at all of the technological advances that have happened and the way that we communicate and interact with people, that old management model just doesn't work anymore. Another thing to consider is, I like throwing this slide up because it's terribly confusing, but this is a framework called Cynefin, and it's basically in business, we want to move things from chaotic to complex to complicated to simple, and then we want to automate things, right? So, but the two most important parts of this framework are the difference between complex and complicated. And if we think about this, I'll give you two examples. Complicated is something that we don't understand, but the outcome is more or less predictable, right? So my watch or my phone or my computer, I don't understand how it all works on the inside, but I know if I push this button that my phone is going to make a phone call, and I know if I look at my watch it's going to tell me more or less the correct time, and so on. So it's complicated, I don't understand all of it, but the outcome is more or less predictable. Complex is where there's a high degree of uncertainty. So it's complicated and there's uncertainty. It may have multiple different outcomes as a result of the same input, and that creates a problem. And the easiest way to think about complexity is thinking about people. Anything, unfortunately, that has a human involved has a certain degree of complexity because people behave in different ways to different stimuli. So now if we've returned to this time where value creation is happening with the brain and not with the hands, we need people. We need a thinking workforce, and that brings a certain degree of complexity. And these old management models also don't work for that. Now, Niels Fleging, who I use some of his concepts in this presentation because he really packages it well, he talks a lot about this need for radical decentralization. I think one of the things that I say, I really appreciate Niels and all of his presentations because he's very inspiring, but one of the things that I think, not all parts of a business need to be radically decentralized. Certain things need to find balance, right? Not everything needs to be agile. Certain things can still be waterfall. Things where we understand what the outcome is at the onset. So when we're starting something, we already know exactly what we want it to look like at the end. We don't need to be agile or iterative in that. We just need to manage the process to get it done as quickly as possible. Other things where there's uncertainty and complexity, we do need to be agile. We do need to have a more iterative approach, and we need more communication, collaboration, and community built around those topics. Now, I often come to this thing when I talk about centralization or decentralization, and I think the balance for each business may be different. So some businesses may be more designed for decentralized and agile environments. Other businesses may be more designed for centralized and controlled environments, and different parts of different businesses may be more designed for somewhere in the middle, depending on that business, that industry, that country.